At first sight, German pilots could hardly believe what they were seeing. High above Europe, cutting through the clouds, flew an American fighter that seemed completely out of place in the refined world of aerial combat. It was enormous, bulky, and awkward, with a round nose and thick wings that made it look more like a flying barrel than a fighter plane. Compared to the sleek lines of the Messerschmitt Bf 109 or the aggressive profile of the Focke-Wulf 190, the P-47 Thunderbolt appeared slow and clumsy. Luftwaffe pilots laughed at it, convinced that no aircraft that large could survive a real dogfight. To them, it was a mistake of American engineering, a symbol of excess rather than efficiency. What they did not understand was that the P-47 was never meant to be elegant. It was designed for something far more important: dominance through power, survivability, and overwhelming firepower. Nicknamed the Jug by its pilots, short for Juggernaut, the Thunderbolt was built around one of the most powerful piston engines of the entire war, the Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp. This massive radial engine, combined with a turbo supercharger hidden deep inside the fuselage, allowed the P-47 to operate at altitudes where many German fighters struggled to breathe. While the Luftwaffe prided itself on agility, the Thunderbolt relied on raw energy, speed, and brutal force. Early encounters reinforced German overconfidence. When Luftwaffe pilots spotted a P-47 formation, they often attacked head-on or from above, expecting an easy victory against what they believed was an inferior aircraft. But the moment an American pilot squeezed the trigger, everything changed. Mounted in the thick wings of the Thunderbolt were 8.50 caliber Browning machine guns, firing hundreds of rounds per minute in a concentrated stream of tracer fire. The sky suddenly filled with glowing lines of death. In just a few seconds, a single burst could rip through a German fighter, shattering wings, igniting fuel tanks, and tearing engines apart. Many German pilots never had time to react. Those who survived the initial encounter quickly realized they were facing something entirely different from any fighter they had fought before. The Thunderbolt was not fragile. It could absorb astonishing amounts of damage and keep flying. Allied pilots told stories of returning to base with entire sections of their aircraft destroyed, engines shot through, control cables severed, and dozens, sometimes hundreds, of bullet holes scattered across the fuselage. Any other fighter would have fallen from the sky, but the P-47 often brought its pilot home alive. As combat reports accumulated, the Luftwaffe's attitude began to shift. The aircraft they once mocked refused to die. Even when German pilots managed to land hits, the Thunderbolt's armored cockpit, self-sealing fuel tanks, and massive engine acted as a shield. Meanwhile, the P-47's incredible diving speed allowed American pilots to choose when to fight and when to disengage. Once a Thunderbolt pointed its nose downward, few aircraft in the world could catch it. The real terror, however, came when the P-47 was unleashed against targets on the ground. As Allied air superiority grew, Thunderbolts descended from the skies to hunt trains, trucks, tanks, and troop columns across occupied Europe. The same 8.50 caliber machine guns that shredded fighters in the air proved devastating against everything below. Locomotives exploded, supply convoys burned, and entire rail yards were reduced to twisted metal. German soldiers learned to recognize the deep, thunderous roar of the P-47's engine, knowing that once they heard it, escape was nearly impossible. German pilots began to speak of the Thunderbolt with a mix of frustration and fear. What had once been a source of ridicule became a symbol of Allied industrial power. The Americans could afford to build an aircraft that prioritized durability over finesse, firepower over elegance, and mass production over perfection. More than 15,000 P-47s would roll off assembly lines, filling the skies with a relentless force that Germany could no longer counter effectively. By the final years of the war, the laughter was gone. The P-47 Thunderbolt had earned its reputation as one of the most lethal and resilient fighters of World War II. It proved that air combat was not only about turning faster or climbing quicker, but about surviving longer, hitting harder, and returning again and again. For many Luftwaffe pilots, the last mistake they ever made was underestimating the massive American fighter they once mocked, only to be consumed moments later by a storm of .50 caliber fire raining down from the sky.